Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Over the weekend, Donald Trump held a bizarre rally in Youngstown, Ohio. It was in support of the Republican Senate candidate there, J.D. Vance. And Trump has given hundreds of rallies. This one was a bit different. You might have already seen this footage already. Take a listen.
It was hardworking patriots like you who built this country, and it is hardworking patriots like you who are going to save our country. We will stand up to the radical left lunatics and rhinos, and we will fight for America like no one has ever fought before.
Hybrid of a salute, altar call, kind of. Obviously, the video's creepy, weird, unnerving. It is worth taking some time to explain why, though. Right before our eyes, the de facto leader of one of two major political parties, we've got two parties, one of them is led by that man right now, and he is embracing fully a violent authoritarian cult mythology. It's one that explicitly imagines its political foes being killed. You see, the song playing in the background of that rally is not mere mood music. It sounds identical to a song that has been adopted as something of an anthem by supporters of the QAnon conspiracy theory. If you go online, the song is known by an acronym, which is also very common in the QAnon world, which stands for Where We Go One, We Go All. That's a slogan that comes up a lot in QAnon world. The folks holding up a single finger in a kind of salute have been interpreted by some as referencing the one in that title, thus signaling their support for QAnon. And this is the most explicit Trump has been in his embrace of QAnon. I mean, of course, he's winked at its supporters for years. He praised QAnon believers during a press conference back in fall of 2020.
During the pandemic, the QAnon movement appears to be gaining a lot of followers. Can you talk about what you think about that and what you have to say to people who are following this movement right now?
Well, I don't know much about the movement other than I understand they like me very much, which I appreciate. But I don't know much about the movement. I have heard that it is gaining in popularity. I've heard these are people that love our country and they just don't like seeing it. So I don't know really anything about it other than they do supposedly like me.
Specifically, at the crux of the theory is this belief that you are secretly saving the world from this satanic cult of pedophiles and cannibals. Does that sound like something you are behind?
Well, I haven't heard that, but is that supposed to be a bad thing or a good thing? I mean, you know, if I can help save the world from problems, I'm willing to do it.
So that was the sort of standard, having it both ways, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, doesn't sound so bad. And, you know, this was kind of part of a pattern. He very deliberately refused to condemn QAnon during an NBC News town hall just weeks before the 2020 election.
Let me ask you about QAnon. It is this theory that Democrats are a satanic pedophile ring and that you are the savior of that. Now, can you just once and for all state that that is completely not true and that disavow QAnon in its entirety?
I know nothing about QAnon.
I just told you.
I know very little. You told me, but what you tell me doesn't necessarily make it fact. I hate to say that. I know nothing about it. I do know they are very much against pedophilia. They fight it very hard, but I know nothing about it.
They believe it is a satanic cult run by the deep state.
Study the subject. I'll tell you what I do know about. I know about Antifa, and I know about the radical left.
Now, you can see how that went, right? So at the time, some folks chalked that up to Trump's refusal to denounce anyone who supported his presidency, which makes sense, right? If someone says to Donald Trump, like, there's this cult of people that believe you're the savior of all mankind, like, what's he going to say? I don't like that. Okay, that was the past. But something's changed in the last few weeks. Really changed. His embrace of this movement, of this cult, has become much more deliberate, much more explicit. Trump frequently uses his off-brand Twitter platform, sort of knockoff Twitter platform, to repost memes and other posts that are just explicitly QAnon, including that slogan I referenced above. One significant one was this one recently. This included this meme captioned, "The storm is coming." That maybe seemingly innocuous phrase is actually a real dog whistle for something very dark. Although, again, to explain all this requires to give a little context to QAnon. Now, we have, of course, referenced and covered this conspiracy on the show in the past. You can't cover politics without bumping into it. The folks who were at January 6th. We tend to not go into the specifics quite deliberately because it's delusional stuff. But QAnon's not a harmless conspiracy theory. There's all sorts of people who believe all sorts of stuff. It's not like people think the Earth is flat or we faked the moon landing. It's an explicitly violent mythos, very kind of religion-like in its sort of main tenets. It lacks one coherent ideology, but it's based on a number of posts. It originated based on a number of posts of an anonymous message board online, early days of the Trump administration. And this anonymous poster on this forum was pretending to be a high-level government official with Q-level top secret clearance. That's hence the name. And the adherents of this conspiracy theory generally believe some variation of the following. The government and media are secretly controlled by a cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles who run an underground, worldwide child sex trafficking ring. They may or may not harvest the blood from children during secret rituals. The so-called deep state is covering up for that cabal. And, this is all familiar stuff, right? Like the Rothschilds and that kind of Masons and all that stuff. And in this mythos, Donald Trump is the only one who could stop them. And there's this kind of eschatology, if you will, to this, a judgment day, right? The judgment day, the moment of reckoning, is called the storm. And it's on that day when Trump will round up his enemies to try them for their supposed crimes and then publicly execute them. So that's what they're all waiting for, hoping for. That's deliverance. A deliberate, explicit call for the murder of Trump's perceived enemies. I mean, I guess they get a show trial first. And this kind of dark delusion has already led to some really dark stuff. Criminal, sometimes violent behavior. In 2018, an Arizona man blocked the Hoover Dam with an armored truck full of weapons in order to bring attention to QAnon claims. Last year, a California man who, according to the FBI, claimed to be, quote, enlightened by QAnon, murdered his 2 young children after coming to believe they were tied to the conspiracy. Just last week, a Michigan man fatally shot his wife and injured his own daughter after, according to his family, becoming enthralled by QAnon, going down the rabbit hole, so to speak. That alone should be enough to say the conspiracy is dangerous, and the beliefs here are vile. They're not the kind of thing you want to flirt with publicly. But Donald Trump's not the only prominent conservative to promote QAnon and its adjacent beliefs. And when you see the people at that rally, you understand that, there's a lot of people out there who believe this. Here's one that sticks with me. According to text messages sent to Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows after the 2020 election, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, Ginny, a prominent conservative activist, believed that Joe Biden, his associates, and members of the media, quote, are being arrested and detained for ballot fraud right now. And over the coming days, will be living in barges off Guantanamo Bay to face military tribunals for sedition. Now, that's a deeply disturbing delusion. And also, what? But it only makes sense in the context of the QAnon vision of MAGA Judgment Day. That's what it would look like. And again, this wasn't just some rando on the internet. The wife of a sitting Supreme Court justice who was in text contact with the chief of staff of the President of the United States in the days following the election and before he led a coup against our government. Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia explicitly praised QAnon before winning elected office. Last year, Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut made this point in a hearing with FBI Director Christopher Wray that public figures embracing this violent conspiracy theory pose a real threat to the country.
I would like to ask you whether the threat posed by QAnon, and as you well know, adherents of QAnon were among the rioters very prominently who stormed the Capitol, whether the continuing threat is worsened when prominent elected officials, including members of Congress, endorse the QAnon theory.
Well, certainly we are concerned about the QAnon phenomenon, which we view as a sort of loose set of conspiracy theories, and we've certainly seen domestic violent extremists of the sort that you're describing cite that as part of their motivation. Obviously, the folks who engage in this kind of violence draw inspiration from a variety of sources, and we're concerned about any source that stimulates or motivates violent extremism.